Okay, so here's to a more serious video. In this video I will be talking about politics, specifically Austrian politics. If you're not into that, you don't need to watch it. Disclaimer number 2, it is highly opinionated, specifically my opinion. So yeah, don't take everything I say for granted. You should never do that anyway. But especially with this video. Another important thing is that when it comes to talking about politics, it's very important to me that even though I might say what I might vote for, that I can still do something else. So basically that I can tell you now that I'll vote for party A and then go to the polling station on Sunday and vote for party B. So it is important that I'm not showing who I'm voting for. I mean, I can say it, but it could still be a lie. Because if everybody would have to publicly tell who they're voting for, then democracy just doesn't work anymore. Okay, so with those thoughts in mind, let's get started. Because Austria is voting again! Yay! We haven't voted in a while! This time, on Sunday, we're gonna vote for the national representation. The National Council, the Nationalrat. Let's just say it as it is, a German thing. Yeah, so basically we vote for the parties that we want to represent us on a national level. Those votes are on Sunday, which is in less than a week. So, in the past 4 hours I took the time to really dive into this topic, because I don't usually spend a lot of time following politics. It's not one of my favorite subjects, but whenever there's a vote coming up, then I feel like I have the responsibility to actually have a look at the party's programs to make an informed choice. I'm in one of those privileged countries that can vote directly, so I should make use of it. I shouldn't just randomly vote, I really should, inform myself. That's what I did, and this video now basically just helps me to sum it all up so that it makes sense. Because sometimes I have thoughts and I think that my thoughts make sense, but really if I vocalize them, then it's just, I see that I have inner conflict or something. So really this video is just for me to either reassure myself or reassess what I'm thinking about the current parties. And I publish it on the internet because I'm a YouTuber or something, I don't know, whatever. I think I need to give another disclaimer. I mean, this is my current opinion. If I see this in 10 years, I might not identify with it at all anymore. In previous elections, I used to always vote for the Greens, because they were, and they still are, the party where I identify the most with their values. You know, things like sustainability and equality, those kind of things. I mean, gay marriage has been a topic this election as well, and I'm pro-gay marriage, even though I personally don't think I will make use of it, but I want it to be a thing in Austria. However, I don't think that I'm gonna vote for the Greens this time, because I just feel like they're blocking too much. I don't have the impression that they're willing to compromise a lot. I mean, if they were the only ones in power, then no problem, but that's just not gonna happen. And if they're in a coalition with someone, I have the impression that they just stop progress because it can never be green enough for them. I don't feel like this is getting us anywhere. Besides, I don't like the top candidate of the Greens currently. From watching the interviews, I don't like her. I just don't. Yes, the party's more than the top candidate. Shut up. Their main argument in this election that separates them from other parties is climate protection. And I absolutely agree that climate change, A, is a thing, and B, we should stop. But Austria is a relatively small country, especially compared to countries like, the United States, who currently have a president who doesn't even believe in climate change. So really, is it that important? Could we really make that much difference? Besides, all of the Austrian parties acknowledge that climate change is the thing, and all of them want to support renewable energies. Even the FPÖ. So really, that's like not a convincing argument this term. So, what else can I vote for? Recent polls say that the People's Party, the ÖVP, is gonna make the race. I don't really get that. I don't understand the hype around their party leader Kurz. I mean, yes, he's young, yes, he might have some ideas, but so far I haven't, really seen or heard anything really interesting from him. And I just have the impression that he's focusing more on the, wealthy people, not so much on the lower class. There is one main reason that I cannot vote for the ÖVP. And that is very likely that they will form a coalition with the FPÖ, the Freedom Party. And if there's one party that I do not want to have ruling the country, then it's the FPÖ. This election, their slogan is "Fairness for Austrians," implying that non-Austrians don't deserve fairness, which I just don't agree with. They constantly talk about the refugee crisis and how many mistakes have been made and we should have stopped this a long time ago, and just pointing fingers. They just like to complain but don't really have any solutions themselves. I also feel like they're very critical to the European Union, and I feel like they want to stop progress. Again, this is very personal because it goes with my definition of progress. But for instance, they want to keep using fossil fuels in the automotive industry. They want to ensure that people can still use their petrol cars in the future, which I can get around. Yeah, you shouldn't force everyone to buy electric cars, but still, electric cars are the future if you ask me. So really, we should focus on them. And there are plans that by 2030 there will be no new cars using petrol. And that seems like a reasonable goal. Like, maybe not for my children, but my grandchildren should grow up in a world where those loud petrol cars are just something of the past. Like steam trains for us. Distant past. And there's another topic that is close to my heart. Smoking. I can't believe that this is still in the top 3 things that I hate about Austria, along with the bad international connections of the airports and that my girlfriend doesn't live here. For smoking, we're far behind in Europe. 2 years ago, they've accepted a law that by 2018 there will be no more smoking in restaurants. And I'm not even kidding here, that was one of the reasons why I decided to go to Cranfield. I saw, 2018 there will be no more smoking in Austria. Oh, that means I have 1 more year that I need to go somewhere else, and then when I come back there will be no smoking. However, the FPÖ wants to fight this law and reverse it, and their argument is that, shisha bars would not be allowed anymore and they would go out of business, which I can understand. Okay, but then just add a special case for them if you sell the smoking equipment in there, or if you sell the smoking experience, that is something different. But as soon as people bring their own cigarettes, they're not allowed to smoke, especially in places where you eat. No smoking, please. Yes, I admit this might be very personal to me and other people might not give a fuck about it, but I get really annoyed if I have to smell that. I really hate it. Yeah, so those are all reasons why I really don't want to have the FPÖ. And I even considered voting for the SPÖ, the Social Democrats, in the hopes that they would get more votes than the ÖVP. But even if that would happen, they could still form a coalition with the FPÖ, so I'm not safe there either. Okay, a few words on the SPÖ. Well, I mean, I would get on board with them. Not a lot of things I have to criticize. Not the best, not the worst. It's just, I wasn't unhappy with how they led the country so far. I mean, yeah, of course there are always things you can improve, but that's the case for every fucking party. I even thought voting for the KPÖ, the Communistic Party. I mean, they have a few good ideas. For instance, basic income, I quite like that one. Affordable living prices, also pro-gay marriage. But the real problem is they're just too small of a party to, actually accomplish something. They will just never get into the council, so there's no real point in voting for them. I mean, if everybody says that, then they'll never grow, It would be better than not voting, but also I feel like it would be a lost vote, and that a vote for another party would be, more valuable. There's the list Peter Pilz, but he did manage to convince me. He's just talking about checking that the other parties don't do bullshit, which is cool, but he admits himself that it's very unlikely that he would actually get that many votes. And then we have the Neos. And I must admit I quite like them, not just because their color is pink. My main argument for liking the Neos is that they're pro-Europe. And that's such an important thing to me. I'm not even sure that I'm gonna stay in Austria. I might just go anywhere in the EU. So it is very important to me that Austria stays part of the EU and supports the EU. Also, I feel like a united Europe is just so much stronger than individual countries. I wasn't a fan of Brexit, in case you couldn't tell. One of the core topics this election was of course the refugee crisis and people coming in. And Stolz, the top candidate of the Neos, said something that I really like, that I really agree with, and that is that that's an issue that should be handled on an EU level. Because it is international law that we need to accept refugees, and we can't just close our borders and leave the problem to other countries. Ideally, the European countries would work together on this, which partly they try. Or it's not really working well, because some countries just want to look more on themselves, you know, like fairness for Austrians. Ideally, this would be handled by the EU, and if you ask me, ideally it would also be paid by the EU. So it should be the EU deciding how much every refugee is supposed to get, and it should be the EU paying for it. And if countries can't or won't accept refugees, that would be okay as long as they then pay for refugees in other countries. But that's just my opinion. What do I know, really? Like, it's a lot more complicated than I ever can or want to think of. But yeah, the Neos are pro-EU, and I really want to vote for a pro-EU party. So there's Neos and Greens that are really like, yeah, Europe. So that means I'll probably be voting for the Neos. I don't agree with everything the Neos say. I don't agree with everything any party says. For instance, when it comes to sustainability, they say that renewable energies and all that shit is not enough, and they want to make a limit of allowed energy consumption per person. Which I personally think is stupid, because if energy would come from just renewable sources, then I don't have a problem with wasting energy. And the real problem is just the big companies. And how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with all the data centers and whatever that just... Those are the ones that use a lot of energy. Yeah, I just think that's a wrong strategy to go by. But maybe if it has a good implementation, it could be helpful, yes. But yeah, those are minor details, and it's probably not gonna actually come to this anyway. So I feel confident voting for the Neos. Might still redecide, who knows. And then I will hope for, well, realistically, a black, pink, green. So ÖVP, Neos and the Greens, they could reach the 50% together. Maybe if I vote for green, ÖVP and Greens would reach the 50%. But I still think, because of their programs, the ÖVP is just so much closer to the FPÖ, so they will just play together with the FPÖ. But that's probably gonna come anyway, black-blue. And they will do shit like extending the working hours. Yeah, sure, why not? We don't work enough anyway. But at least I'll be able to say that I didn't vote for that. And even more importantly, I'll be able to say that I did go vote. And that's also what I urge you to do. If you're allowed to vote in the Austrian elections on Sunday, please do go vote. Make yourself a picture of the parties and then do make that cross wherever you think fits. Yep, so that's that. I can't wait for the results on Sunday afternoon. I mean, I'm hopeful, but I won't be surprised if it's not what I want, which is pretty likely. At least I informed myself, at least I thought about it a little bit, and at least I will go to vote. Make your backup.